like sands through the Iowa waste. This is the Wheel of Time.
Good evening, everyone. This is Laurel Sadai. I'm here with Al Dave Moncarbino. We're here for episode 3 of As the Wheel Turns. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm doing well. How are you, Laurel?
I'm just ducky.
Ducky.
We were going to record this sooner, and then life found its way. And so now we're back finally recording. But since we recorded our JordanCon episode, we had some terrible news that the Wheel of Time Amazon show was canceled. So, how are you feeling about that, Dave?
I'm still kind of reeling from it, still trying to figure out exactly what I think about it. Yeah, I really enjoyed the show. I'm sort of upset this is possibly not going to be here anymore.
Yeah, and they're talking about, I mean, people are really hoping that another streamer like Apple TV might pick it up, though I feel like ever since we dealt with the OA being canceled and people worked so hard to try to get it picked up and, you know, these petitions and these protests and nothing happened, that my faith is lost. But, you know, if you do want to make your voice heard, SaveWatt.com, that's SaveWOT.com, is a campaign to save the show and have it picked up. And so you can submit like a fan letter, you can do a video, there's social media stuff that they're doing. You can sign the petition. So I highly encourage you to do that if you haven't already. I think they are up to 89,000 as of Saturday, May 31st at 9:49 Eastern Time. So, yeah. Please sign it. You never know. I'm a pessimist, so I'd like to be proven wrong.
I'm often an optimist, so I still believe, but we'll see how this all plays out. But
so tonight we're going to talk about The Shadow Rising, which you finished, Dave, like a while ago. Yeah. And so I'm sitting in front of a dragonmount.com summary of The Shadow Rising, not because I don't remember anything, but because it's been a while since I reread this one, and I know it's been a while since you read it. But it is my favorite of the series, and so I was really excited to have you experience it before the show, so that wasn't, you know, affecting you. But also, there's so many things in this book, so many things happen in this book that are so good. So I think we could just kick it off with talking about Rand's journey first. Okay, so we pick things up where we left off in Tyr after book 3. And we have our bubble of evil with Rand and the mirrors and Matt and his playing cards and Perrin and his axe. And I know now that we've done the show that it's hard to like separate the two, but
for sure.
What did you think about that when you read that the first time?
See, I thought it was pretty cool when we read it the first time. I really didn't know how they were going to do it in the show, but for reading it the first time, it just seemed like there was just so much going on that I didn't really understand fully.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Didn't understand why this was happening or what was going on, I guess.
Yeah.
Initially when I was reading it.
Yes.
But then obviously I saw the thing at the show. We did that. We don't want to talk too much about the show because it gets a little confusing.
I know.
But for this particular scene, I was impressed by how the show pulled that off. But like,
yes.
But it just all felt very fantasy.
It amps up the kind of supernatural, fantastical elements, especially like the playing cards coming to life, which is like, you know, it's kind of a bonkers thing. Not that, because there's been, you know, there's fantastical stuff in Wheel of Time, but like, I feel like this is the book that ramps it up big time.
Oh, for sure.
So now we've got, you know, Matt wants to leave, but he can't. He can't separate himself. And this is also in the stone is when they're attacked by Trollocs and that child dies and he tries to bring it back to life, which is a pretty horrifying image, and kind of, you start to see a little of the
Darker
crazy,
the darker
the
side.
Rand
maybe?
crazy.
Yeah.
And but the thing that I'm trying to not jump ahead to, because this was like the moment when I read these books and I went, this is different, is in Tyr, when they all go through separately, Moraine, Rand, and Matt, the twisted red stone door frame, which is easily one of my top 5 favorite things in all of these books. And so, what did you think of that? Because it's really, it's out there.
Yeah. I had to actually. So I do a lot of this in my car driving back and forth to work. So I had to actually listen to this chapter like 3 times. I listened to it once on the way to work and was sort of confused by it. And I listened once on the way home when my brain was a little bit better off. And, I had a hard time getting my head around where we were, what was going on, who was involved, what this creature is or what it's supposed to look like.
Yes.
It just took me a little bit to get that, but I mean, when I look through the book of it, it's a little bit easier to see it on the page.
Yeah.
Listening to it.
Though Rosamund Pike reading it, because
I
I listened to her do it recently, and she's fantastic at it, because there's, the part where, he's in there and, well, actually when they all come out and they're talking about it with Moraine, and that's when you get the emphasis that they're talking to Matt in there, the Eelfin, in Old Tongue, and he understands it, but they have to have a translator for Rand. But Matt really kind of holds that in. He doesn't want to admit anything about like what he heard or what the fact that he was able to understand it.
Yeah.
So wanted to talk about the things that they tell Matt, the fates that they tell him, which is to marry the daughter of the Nine Moons, to die and live again and live once more a part of what was, and to give up half the light of the world to save the world. So, do you have any thoughts on those things?
I still think it's a little too early in my experience to like tell you what my thoughts are really on that.
Yeah.
Because I haven't read enough to really get myself.
Do you think that they're legitimate? Do you think that these are actually things that are going to happen?
I think these are things that are foretold to happen. Now it seems like in this book, it seems like there's more. Prophecies seem to mostly come true. So So I believe that these things are going to happen, but they may not happen the way we expect them to. Based on, it seems like I don't really trust the Eelfin at all.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, obviously I'm not going to reveal the truth, but, so they come out, we know that Rand was told he had to go to Ruidian, and I believe Moraine too, and so did Matt.
Yes.
So they're all going to go to Ruidian, right? Yes. And Perrin, we're not going to get into Perrin unless you want to talk about Perrin now, but Perrin's going to split off and do his own thing.
Yeah. I think we talk about that separately because I think that's...
We'll talk about that separately, okay.
There's a lot of, I think, our thoughts are going to be around that storyline.
Okay, so we got Rand, Matt, Egwene, Moraine, Lan, all heading to Ruidian with Avienda, where Rand's going to go through the glass columns, and Matt finds another door frame. So, now the glass columns... So, I was absolutely lost the first time I read Ruidian and what Rand sees in the glass columns. And it took me having to reread it, read a summary to understand, and then go back and read it again for me to get it. Which I'm slightly embarrassed to admit as a person who went to college for English. But this last reread was even better, because it is a really like pretty fascinating sequence to see, how the Aiel came to be, and see, his, kind of experience seeing all of his ancestors and the history. Were you had not gotten there? Obviously, you finished the book before season 3 started. So were you absolutely 100% lost? Did you understand what was happening?
I wasn't 100% lost. There was a time where I got sort of like messed up as to what story we were telling.
Yeah.
Because there's 3 or 4 of them like right in succession.
Yep.
So I got a little confused. It's like, okay, are we still in the same storyline we were? Are we not? But luckily for me, I have you as a background, so when I had some questions about it, I was able to just ask you about them. And I did re-listen to it twice, but it wasn't like it wasn't as confusing to me.
Yeah, I wonder like
for me,
if that's so funny to me because the eelfin thing, I was like, just fascinated right away, and Ruidian is a fantastic passage that I just appreciated it. I appreciate it more on my second reread. I think because what I struggle with sometimes, especially with the Wheel of Time, was always like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I have a hard time just kind of settling in and being, okay, let me focus on this. So as a second reread, it was pretty amazing to kind of see that now that I know the end result.
I think that for me, like, it was, I felt like because the Eelfin was directly talking to our characters, I needed to understand all the details of it.
Yeah.
In a way that maybe I didn't understand all the details of the individual characters in the columns.
Yeah.
What was more, I did getting the points of what they're trying to tell me across.
Okay.
So that's why I think I needed to take more time
that's
for that.
true. Yep.
But I was getting the gist of it, and I got you to correspond that yes, what I'm hearing is basically true.
Yes, right. I know. I didn't have that, so I was like, what's going on?
And even with my degree in English, it made me go 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, so which is, I think, something that I truly appreciate about these books is that you can't passively read them. You have to be very much invested to really appreciate everything that's happening. So, even though I know the Ruidian story is a favorite for many people, in The Shadow Rising, I must confess, it is not my favorite storyline. The Matt stuff I love because I love Matt, but I love it, but it's not like the part that I can't wait to get to when I read these books. That's all Perrin.
I'm kind of with you on that. Like, it's funny because I felt it very differently in the show. I felt that about that.
Exactly. That's what's bonkers to me because I was so excited to see the Battle of the Two Rivers, and you and I have discussed it separately that it didn't quite live up to the just awesomeness of the books. I really felt like that section in the books, and we can jump into that next.
Yeah, we probably
is really like, So let's just start there. So Perrin is gonna go home to the Two Rivers. Fael tricks her way into going with them by manipulating sweet Loyal and getting him to take her through the ways, right?
Yep.
So off they go with Gaul and Bane and Chiad to the Two Rivers, and like this is like the ultimate you can't go home again kind of story because when he gets there, it's like the Althor farm is burned down. Matt's sisters are being held by the White Cloaks. His family is murdered, which is a devastating scene. And when he realizes it, and he and Fael have that moment where he's crying, and you came home that day to tell me you had read that section, and I started crying talking about it.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what it is that I find so affecting about this Perrin story. It's like something about everything he's been through, and now he comes home, and it's like nothing is the same again. It's, now we've got this Slayer guy who we're being hunted by. Padden Fane is back. And it's just Perrin is, suddenly gone from being this kid in the Two Rivers to like a man who's leading these people. And, we've got Tam Althor and Abel Cawthon that have come and that are like hiding out, which I just like, the fact that they're, you don't realize how much of it. I don't think Perrin realizes how much of badasses those guys are, but here they are, and then they let Perrin take the lead, and he gets the villagers united to fight it's just the most satisfying, in my opinion, of the stories in this. As amazing as this book is as a whole, that story has a satisfying end. And yeah. So, do you agree? Is this your favorite?
So I've been thinking a lot about why it's so much more meaningful in the book than it is in the show, to me, at least.
Okay.
I mean, it all starts from obviously the Faio storyline, having so much more time with her, so much more.
Yeah,
so much more
we know her well by now.
We know her well.
Yeah,
we had the
in
whole
love,
rescue
really.
thing
Yeah.
2 books ago. We tried, we're trying to. They come in a very different place.
Yep.
Than they do in the show. But on top of that, like just the stakes are different. Like his family's dead.
Yes.
He comes home and everybody's like, "Oh my God, you're here." They're all gone.
Yeah, and you have to hide. There's that threat really of him having to hide out, which I don't want us to do too much comparison to the show, but I didn't feel as much of that when he came home. There wasn't as much of like a danger as they do in the books, where you really feel like, this is a scary place to be. Like, bad shit is happening, and he needs to,
absolutely. And then on top of that, the whole idea of it sort of being a coming of age thing, where he is now like the leader, and that the older men of the town are now looking to him to help guide them.
Yeah.
And his close relationships with those two men, looking to him and saying, "No, you're going to lead this.
Yeah.
And we're going to make sure this happens." And now everything that happens, that whole storyline just becomes so much more intense than it was in the show. I know you don't want to just compare it to it, but like the intensity of all of that leads all the way through to the very end, and when the whole battle happens, is just ratcheted up, and the Slayer thing is part of it, and that wasn't really represented. In their media because they didn't have time. It's not.
But do you feel like you understand who Slayer is? Like, do you?
No, I have no real idea who Slayer is. I know who he supposedly is in the book, but I don't really understand the full depth of what's going on yet. If that makes any sense. Even having read half the next book, I still don't really get that understanding yet.
Well, it's like that old adage that read and find out, which is truly, I mean, it is for this.
And we're continuing on. I mean, as I said, like we'll get there, and I'm impressed by how much I like the next book.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Okay.
But we'll go on from there. So,
but Perrin, and when Faya leaves and then comes back at the end, bringing support to when things are looking really, really bad, like that was to me such a cinematic part in the book of her riding to his rescue, and then it all working out okay, and then off they go. They're married now, and off they go happily ever after. I mean, and I know, and spoiler alert, doesn't really happen like that. Like the rest of the story, it's not all happily ever after. But I feel like this was such a nice story. It kind of ends and you're like, okay, like he saved the day. He and Fail are married. No one major died. Like, and then let's, wait and see. And then of course, when I picked up book 5 way back in the day and read it, I was like, oh, where's Perrin? But so I think when I ended this book, I definitely was like, Perrin's my favorite. He's my favorite. I love him the most. And that changed throughout as I read these, but, and then less so. The Elaine Nynaeve story is smaller in this, right? Like they come and go a couple times. We get that crazy scene with Moghedien where she sort of manipulates Nynaeve by using compulsion, and so and then there's that hilarious scene where Nynaeve and Moghedien fight. But it's,
I love that word.
That channeling thing. Yeah.
It's phrased like, they're just staring at each other.
Yeah, if anyone had walked by, all they would see was just two women staring at each other, which is hilarious. So that, they're kind of, they're setting up a lot. I feel like there's a lot of setup happening with the Nynaeve and Elaine story. And then the other story that we can't forget to talk about, which is Suan and Elida, Suan, deposing Elida and stilling her, and stilling Leanne, and then Min saves them in this one, right? It's a book 4 that she rescues them from.
Yes.
Right, not
yes,
book 5.
and
This
they
is the
go off.
problem.
It is.
But the fact that we didn't record this right when we finished, because I'm like, we started book 5, and I'm like, wait, where, what?
Well, yes. So I'm just gonna say yes because everything else I say is gonna be about book 5. So don't worry.
Yeah, and that it's not a big deal. But
No.
that did you feel like when I read that I was like, oh my god, like nothing is safe anymore. How like scary it is,
Yeah.
right? You're like,
absolutely. It was so intense.
Yeah.
That was like the intense and the fact that they turned on her
mm-hmm.
and all of this happened almost like just like seamlessly behind everybody else's back.
Yeah.
It was kind of crazy. And
Logain is part of their little
absolutely
road trip.
Road trip, which is an awesome part of the story too.
Yes, it's like it's just every time you think like things are settling down, and as you're getting to the end of this book, something else crazy happens.
And there's still a lot of Tanchico stuff. There is still some good stuff there too.
Yeah,
they're still chasing the Black Aja. They're still dealing with all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, for me, obviously, the parent story is the supreme story of these 3 storylines. I think the 3 main storylines.
Yeah.
But like, all of them are sort of important. They're all setting up something cool to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely like a the parent story is like not really it's resolved within the book, but everyone else's story is definitely set up. Rand having to reveal himself as he who who proclaim himself as he who comes with the dawn. The Asmodean fighting, and then getting Asmodean to now be his teacher, which is huge, and like again another thing that sets up stuff.
And the Shiloh, talking about all the Shiloh stuff that was happening and the segregating of
the Shiloh,
yeah. So all that stuff. I feel like the other storylines outside the parent storyline are like all set up coming into the next book. Well, I think that the parent storyline is like the main star of this book.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like everybody else is going to get its time as books go on, but like this was really what this book like spoke to me about. I guess.
Yeah, and that like to turn to the show briefly, I agree with you. Not having Tam, I know that the actor who played Tam had a scheduling conflict. And so there were parts of me that were like, okay, so really Tam and Abel are off like in hiding out and letting 2 Rivers fight for themselves like that. You have to really suspend your disbelief on that. And that was disappointing for me because I really wanted to see Tam and Abel helping out. But I also was like, acknowledged that going into season 3, I knew that nothing would live up to my expectations for that sequence because I loved that sequence so much. And I just, it was hard. The first time I watched it, I was kind of like, disappointed with how it ended. But then, I watched it a second time without that feeling of like, okay, how are they going to do this? How are they going to do this? I know how they're going to do it. Let me watch it again. And I didn't hate it, but it's not my favorite episode of the season. No. And I think my favorite thing that happens this season, and that was something I never thought I would see, and makes it even sadder knowing that if the show doesn't get picked up by someone else, we'll never get to see any more of it, which was Matt getting to go through the redstone doorway frame, which I never thought was going to happen on television, and it did, and it made me so happy. I thought it was great. I'd love to see more of it, but... So, going to the book, finish book 4.
Yeah.
I know you're in book 5, but if you could pick, your favorite moment from Shadow Rising, what would it be?
Well, my favorite moment would be when Faio comes back with the support they need to win the battle.
Yeah.
And how it's just how powerful that whole section of the book is.
Yeah.
And how powerful all that is. And there's a lot of reasons why the show couldn't do that. And we've talked about some of them. And there's even just something as simple as like Abel's not the same character in the show. He's
exactly.
Not the same character in the show.
Yeah.
You could never have used him the same way with the way they set him up in season 1.
Yeah. They could have. They could have made his redemption arc, but
I get it.
That's fine.
But that would have been separate.
Yeah, it would have been. It's too hard to fit that all in there, right?
You're throwing something in that. You're throwing in extra stuff now that wasn't there.
There's so much that happens in book 4.
Yeah,
that's hard enough. Yeah. So that's your favorite moment. Favorite character do you feel like you've formed an opinion about who your favorite character might
Well,
be?
I think in last book it was sort of Matt, and then this became sort of Perrin, and then it sort of bounces back between Matt and Perrin as who's being focused on, I think.
Well, because in book 5 we're not seeing Perrin at all, so you're leaning Matt.
Book 5's kind of weird. I'm not really Matt's parts.
Well, we
are
can
not like we'll talk about more.
So
about
after book 4,
book
Perrin.
4 it's Perrin.
Yeah,
Matt and Perrin I seem to bounce between, but they both really appeal to me in very different ways.
Yeah,
in very different parts of my personality. It just speaks to me. So.
Yeah, and for me, book 4, favorite sequence is, I don't know, that Fael coming back is like moved me very much the first time I read it, and even more so the second time, but also like the Matt door frame, because I just thought like this is different. This series is not what I was expecting. Like that happened. Holy crap, that was crazy. So I loved that. I'm a Matt fan, but rereading these, Egwene, she's getting to start to train with I know. So we can talk about that. So Egwene training with the Dreamwalkers and becoming one, is Egwene's one of my favorite characters, because that is one of my favorite plot points. I think that's so interesting. I love Tel'aran'rhiod. I love all of the, I don't think we have meetings in there yet. I think book 5. So we can't really get into it yet, but we'll get into it when we talk about book 5.
Yeah.
Is the, the girls meeting in the dream. Like, I love that. I think it's such a cool plot device, and I love her learning it. It's knowing her full character arc, which you will get there. Yeah. It makes me appreciate it even more reading it the second time around. So I love that. So Egwene is definitely like top of my list. I love Nynaeve too. I think, I love show Nynaeve, and she was my first exposure to Nynaeve and then I read the books, and I was disappointed that Nynaeve wasn't as prominent. But then reading it a second time, I'm like, there are some really great Nynaeve. And Nynaeve and Lan are really like, I love the two of them. You don't get a ton of them together in the books, but when you do, it's a good romance, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the big thing is this Egwene thing, right? So Egwene's, this is like the setup book, I think. Book 4 is sort of the setup of her learning the basics of this.
Yep.
Starting to incorporate that and getting the girls involved, right?
Yeah.
So this is all starting to happen, and a lot bigger, more important things happen in the next book once this happens.
So we'll get into
that next time.
When we talk about book 5.
But the setup of this and her learning this is pretty important also.
Yeah. Yeah.
It definitely fills up time with useful information. You know what I mean? So, I really enjoyed that part of the book too. I almost forgot about it.
All right, so you're pretty far into book 5, and you're enjoying it. Yes. It is a good one, and some pretty crazy stuff happens. So we'll have to come back and do that. But what are there any like predictions you have, or things you think? I mean, now I know you're like more than halfway through book 5, so it's a little bit different than when you're just finishing book 4. But
at the end of book 4, my prediction wise, we just be talking about, hey, I want to see some sort of resolution with the Ten Chico stuff. We'd love to see something going on with them, because right now I believe they've escaped with everything. I don't really know exactly what's happening in that. I think that's where we ended, and that we're sort of chasing them down, right? And that would be my prediction for that. And then I want to see the growth of the girls and the sleepwalking and the
dreamwalking.
The interesting things that are going to happen with different characters coming up soon.
As they start to get better. And you've met
some things.
Birgitte, So, oh my God. So we have a lot to talk about.
That's actually the best part of the book so far. To me, has been all that happening.
Because we've met, in book 4, Perrin... Doesn't Perrin in the Wolf Dream see Birgitte? And I don't think he realizes who she is, and she warns him against following Slayer into the Tower of Genji, which is like, one of those great kind of creepy Tel'aran'rhiod scenes. Well, Wolf Dream scenes, whatever. Yeah. So you got a little bit of hint of her, but now she's coming in.
A full-fledged character for me at this point in the storyline, and really adding a very different element to the girls' storyline.
Yes.
Which I think was actually needed to sort of broaden it.
Yeah.
Because right now they were all like too similar. They all
yes.
have two similar
and they get kind of like back-burnered in book 4. Like, so much of it is the guys, the boys.
Yeah.
And so I feel like book 5 is when you really start to see them, like, growing and learning and becoming, you know, they're all powerful, like, characters, all of them, boys and the women, like, they're all powerful. And so getting to see them learning Tel'aran'rhiod and learning dream walking is, and, you know, the threats that they face there, it's such a cool part of the story, and it really makes their characters so much more fleshed out.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, I just, rereading book 5 now is just, it's so fun to see what they figured out and how they learn and how good they become at it. Yeah, it's just, I can't wait to talk about book 5.
Yeah, we'll definitely get there very soon.
We're going to be doing that soon.
Yeah.
And trying to record it, like, almost as soon as you finish, so we're not doing this, like,
because right now we're sort of forgetting.
months later. Yeah. What happened?
Like 2
Isn't
months
this a great
book,
podcast? You can listen to these two people trying to remember what happened in a book they're supposed to be discussing. It's great. So yeah, and so hopefully, you know, maybe we'll have some good Wheel of Time TV show news. I don't know. The other thing that's coming up, Wheel of Time related, is Wat Idol. And Dave and I are working on our own parody song.
Yes, we are.
We've written some lyrics, so we have to work on that. So,
project, I think,
yeah, but for now, thanks for listening, all 3 of you. And, you know, stay tuned for our episode on book 5. All right?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Catch you later.
Bye.